Good day, everyone. My name is Charles Elsa Jr., and I'm here to present the opening statement for our notion. How must we think that AIs must be granted personhood? In a legal sense, there is no categorical legal answer to the question whether AI should be given legal personhood. That question is a political question that must be answered by a legislature weighing the advantages and disadvantages of such a move. Let us look at reasons how AI should be granted personhood and the ever changing concept of what categorizes a person. The concept of quote unquote person is specified according to the qualifying capability or set of faculties that naturally belong to an individual. Back in the 6th century, with Boethius' definition, persona est naturae, rationalis individua substantia, continuing through John Locke's characterization, a thinking, intelligent being that has reason and reflection and can consider itself as itself. This is, however, not necessarily the correct way or only way to formulate and define what a person is. We have gone through those times, and it's time to look forward, ahead, and beyond. Some meanings of person refer first to how the object of the attribution will be treated, whereas natural personhood refers first to what the object is, independently of treatment. Oftentimes, natural personhood is seen as possessing an intrinsic moral personhood that demands a mind, further attributed status, or role within society. As to AIs, we all know its ability to think for itself or what it is made to do and process information alone. It has been hinted for some time now that AIs aren't just tools. They have a social role and their personhood must be considered as recognized rather than conferred. They need to have limits in some ways since AIs are very powerful and we can process information efficiently as much as they can. They can even be used in a despicable way, considering there are no legislations that bind it from happening. People too oftentimes use human beings to carry out adverse plans. This is the same danger that society will face. With that said, the most important point is that AIs stipulate a functional requirement for minds, and thus personhoods. AIs being in a computational state is a sufficient condition for being a mind. Achieving this functional requirement requires AIs to acquire the right program, whenever it may be. Therefore, the intrinsic moral personhood that was discussed earlier is now relevant, because having a mind in this sense is not anymore intrinsic, and thus the intrinsic moral personhood is not anymore a fitting basis to categorize a person. Just like a human being, AIs are achieving a mind, a functional purpose, and a social role. Moreover, we cannot call fetuses, prelinguistic children, adults with localized aphasia, comatose patients not a person just because of their inability to perform all three that was achieved by AIs.
Good evening, everyone. I am Angelo Jeans Damiel, and this is the first argument. For everybody's information, and according to the law of computer scientists, in modern positive law, there are two types of legal subjects. First is the natural person, and second is the legal person. Human beings are considered to be natural persons, and AI should not be seen as something natural. To emphasize the legal subjectivity is an artificial construct based on what qualifies as an entity as a legal subject. We should be reminded that at some point animals could be charged with a criminal offense. Black people have been regarded as beings of an inferior order with no rights which the white man was bound to respect. All this should lead to the conclusion that, in principle, positive law can attribute legal personhood to whatever entity. Legal personhood that involves criminal law liability or constitutional rights, such as the right to privacy or non discrimination to AI, that can be called to account for their actions. The issue of legal personhood for AI clearly demonstrates that even if its attribution would solve some problems, it will create others. For example, a person operating a permissible technology that nevertheless carries an increased risk of harm to others, just such as the AI-driven robots in public spaces, should be subject to strict liability for damage resulting from its operation. The main concern of the experts seems to be that those manufacturing, operating, using, or updating these agents must be held accountable for harm caused to prevent hazardous employment of artificial agents. This should not enable those who develop and employ artificial agents to outsource and escape responsibility, thus incentivizing them to take risks and externalize costs because they know that they will not be liable. The legal personhood of the AI should be prioritized in the aspect of right to privacy and non-discrimination, and the law should be incentivized for those who employ these artificial agents to be accountable and held responsible in developing the AI. Thank you.
Good day, I am Paulo Pipito for the second rebuttal. Though, yes, the idea of granting personhood to an AI can pose a risk of having adverse repercussions for affected entities, human or otherwise, we argue that the benefits outweigh the consequences. The reason why people intentionally put human qualities on intelligent technologies is straightforward. Humans love humans. When we interact with machines in the same way we interact with friends and family, we tend to interact with it in a similarly and frame it in a more affectionate light. This is the next evolution of making technology more user friendly, more so than the user interface, user experience improvements of today. Now, let's talk about the topic in legal terms. Today's legislations provide a legal loophole that allows an AI to be a legal person, having the same rights as any other legal person, including registered organizations, corporations, but also human beings as well. This can be done by putting an AI in charge of a corporation. As of now, AI is not yet advanced enough to handle such a major responsibility, but given how fast AI has improved in such a short span of time, and given the vast improvements in hardware, this will become a possibility soon. Now, one might ask what this means for anyone or anything affected by a corporation headed by an AI. As long as we are careful, AIs have the potential of functioning more efficiently than any executive on the planet, no matter their experience. In seconds, an AI can find the right data, crunch it, and make extremely smart decisions based upon it. Though dangerous, it arguably has a very strong feature that separates a good executive from a bad one. It keeps emotions separate from business, or in the case of AI, no emotions altogether, making purely rational decisions. As noted, this is not yet a possibility as of today, but again, if we're careful and cunning enough, an AI can massively help humans in our general endeavor to improve human life.
So, my name is Jade Louise Yu, and I'm going to conclude our debate. So, from this debate, we can conclude that the team agrees how artificial intelligence should be granted personhood and rights, because despite it being in a computational state, it possesses a functional requirement for minds. Therefore, they also have a purpose and role in society. From the first argument, we can infer that granting personhood to AI is highly prioritized in the aspect of right to privacy and non discrimination. And by attempting to solve problems with AI, it could also be used to develop another problem. Now, this is where the second argument comes in. The speaker mentioned about present legislations that provide a loophole that allows AI to be considered a legal person, meaning they will be in charge of decision making in corporations and other selfish entities, making humans seem to have less rights than AI, which leads to great indignity, discrimination, and endangering human safety. Such the aforementioned, it should not be a way for developers to limit their civil and criminal liability in committing crimes by leaving it to the AI algorithm to decide. So, developers should not program the AI to dominate or to be in control over human beings. That security and welfare of the people should still be the top priority. AI should only be used if there are predefined limitations to what it can do and not do. In order to avoid such dehumanizing future, we should think of ways to put AI's capabilities to good use, and that there should be awareness and practice of legal safety to avoid cyber attacks. AI should improve quality of human life, not the other way around. So once again, this has been Group 5, presenting agree or accept stance in terms of granting AI legal personhood and rights. Thank you so much for listening.